All right, let's get started. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use 6 Desmos categories, 7 SAT questions to look at these 6 Desmos categories so I can show you like a gazillion unbelievable next level amazing Desmos features that are completely and utterly game changing. That's the goal. These are the 7 questions that I'm going to go after. The 6 categories are solving a single equation with one variable, solving systems of equations, using key points on graphs in particular, using key points to write an equation, percentages, and is equivalent to types of questions. Let's go. So to start, I have a question that is begging of me to solve a single equation. Now, when I ask you to solve a single equation, there's a simple and easy pro move. The simple and easy pro move is that you can say y equals the left side and y equals the right side, and you can actually then click on the gray dots where they cross, and boom, you have the solution to that equation. So instead of doing what the College Board is asking you to do, multiplying both sides of this equation by x plus 6, distributing the x, getting a quadratic, setting the whole thing equal to 0, and then solving that quadratic, you can literally say y equals the left side, y equals the right side, look to see where they cross, and the x values where they cross are the values that solve that. You can also put the entire equation in, and Desmos is such a powerful calculator that it will try to graph the x equals in these green lines right here. Now, much of the time, you will get gray dots exactly where they cross. So in this case, the answer is 5 because we're looking for a positive solution. And this sure does cross at 5. And we can see that, but it doesn't take away from the fact that it doesn't look perfect and you don't have that gray dot. And so I chose this as an example of one that doesn't give you the gray dot, even though plenty of them do give you a gray dot. But you can always say y equals the left side, y equals the right side. You can click on either one of the equations so you can see where they cross and get that gray dot. I was zoomed in a little too far, but all good here. In this case, I have a system of equations. I've graphed it, but I want to point out something really, really important. And that is that I did not isolate y, which is a huge deal all by itself, because isolating y would allow you to graph it on your graphing calculator in school, whether you're using a calculator that's a Casio calculator or a TI-84 Plus or a TI Inspire, whatever it might be, those graphing calculators. To graph on those, you need to get y alone, which would be like subtracting 6x on both sides, dividing both sides by 7. An amazing feature of this calculator is that you can literally just put the equation directly in. In addition to that, when you put the equations in, you can either click on the actual line or next to the equation that you put in, and you can click on the gray dot where they cross and find the value of y for the solution to the systems of equations and know that the answer here is A. Pretty cool. This is just a quadratic graph. It happens to be a question number 20 out of 22, which means that it is very difficult. It's asking us for what value of x does the function reach its minimum. The beautiful thing about being able to put a quadratic in is that you can literally just click next to the equation and get gray dots at the most important points. On your calculator in school, if you wanted to get the minimum, you'd have to go second, calculate menu, choose left bound, then right bound, then get the minimum after guessing. Here you can just click on it. The minimum is negative 30.25, but the x value, for what value of x does it hit its minimum, the x value is 6.25, which is indeed the answer. It is a very cool feature that with any function, you can also put in any value you want and have Desmos just solve it for you. Very cool that I can do that. So you can see I'm not trying to do anything fancy. I'm just putting this in. Like in this case, f of 6.25. I know that that happens to be my minimum. I go like this, or I click anywhere on the graph. There it is. Also great to know that there's a feature right here where you can go from a decimal to a fraction back and forth. But incredible to know that you can literally plug any value you want in and Desmos will do the calculation for you. Also very cool, you saw earlier, if I click here, I can actually create a table and then I can change the values of x to look at the values of y. Not as important for this particular question, but very cool nonetheless. And I can go like this and watch it as it's changing. We'll talk about more features for sure, but very, very cool. Also good to know that even if it looks crazy complicated, if it really does fall into the category of a single equation, why can't you say y equals left side, y equals right side, and see where they cross? Boom, boom. Pretty cool. Click on the points where they cross. This happens to be the x value, the smallest x value that's the solution to the system of equations that makes the two sides equal each other. It is remarkable because you'd imagine that doing this like you would textbook style in a classroom is quite involved, squaring both sides, foiling this out, getting a quadratic, setting the whole thing equal to 0, solving that quadratic. You can indeed say y equals the left side and the right side and look for those vertical lines. But again, you never know if you're going to get that gray dot. If you do, it's amazing. And sometimes it's easy to get the gray dot. An example of getting that gray dot would be right here, where if I wanted to just say y equals x% of 300 and y equals 75, here I can do better for you. This says what percentage of 300 is 75? And sure enough, if I say x percentage of 300 is 75, I'll get a vertical line. And if I click here, I'll get that gray dot. If I didn't get the gray dot, I could say y equals the left side and y equals the right side and see where they cross. That would be pretty cool too. Either way, the answer to this question is 25%, but you could have also said p% of 300 and then made p a slider and decided that the slider was 0 to 100% and then watched it and decided for what value of p do I get 75? I can either use the answer choices like this and say, well, that's way too big. I'm looking for 75 and go, one by one. Or if I want to, I could have easily typed in all the answer choices right here. The answer is definitely A. We see that up here, obviously. But very cool regardless that if I wanted to, I could type in every answer choice right there. So there are multiple features here to focus on. This is a single equation with one variable, bang, vertical line, done. This is y equals the left side, y equals the right side, seeing where they cross. This is putting the percent sign in, which I did up here just by doing Shift 5 on my actual keyboard, and it goes to percent, but then it adds the of. So if I go 37 and then I go percent, it adds the of, and then I can put whatever I want in, and it will do the math for me. And this right here is an is equivalent type of question, which is huge. And I'm going to go back to the line of best fit because it's neat, but I wanted to skip it in the moment just for the sake of flow. In this case, I have which expression is equivalent to this. So what I did is I graphed the original. Now, as I started going to the answers, first, I decided I wanted to graph A. And when I did, I was like, A is not the answer because it doesn't land on top of the original one and ask the equivalent. Then I went to do C because it was so similar. And all I had to do was put a negative there. And I'm like, well, that's not it either. Then I went to D and I was like, that could be the answer. It looks like it is. To be super safe, I'm going to go ahead and just plug in B, y equals B. And it did not land on top of it. So I knew that the answer was D. Very cool because it is equivalent to, and it's saving me all the anguish of doing the actual math, getting a common denominator with fractions that I might not be so familiar with how to get a common denominator, multiplying top and bottom of this fraction by 4x minus 5 and top bottom of this fraction by x plus 1. So this feature allows you, if you understand the relationship and what you're trying to do, it really allows you to get the right answer, even if you weren't 100% sure about the math. It also helps you wrap your brain around how to understand the relationship involved in all of the math too. This right here is a very next level move where I clicked plus and I made a table. And in that table, I put in these values. I just happened to do it up top here in this table. I then accessed these values. This is y subscript 1, this is x subscript 1, to create an equation of best fit. So what I did is I made a tilde instead of an equal sign. I made the unknowns A, because I didn't know if it was 3, 5, 9, or 1, and B, because I didn't know if it was 3, 1, negative 1, or 5. And then I used x subscript 1 for the x's. And other than that, I just created the same construct as the answers And sure enough, it gave me those answers. Crazy cool. The way it works is if you wanted to make a y subscript 1, what you do is instead of just typing in y, you touch the y and then you touch the 1 before you take your finger off the y, and there it accesses these 3 elements. The tilde on my keyboard is in the top left corner on my MacBook, to the left of the one above the tab. And I made a tilde instead of an equal sign. Then I just did a, x subscript 1 by touching x and 1 before I take my finger off the x. I want to go square it. So I did Shift 6, you know, the little caret top to square it. Or if I wanted to, I could have clicked here and gone to square it. And then I'm going to go plus b, x subscript 1, plus 14, because all the answers have a 14 in them. And sure enough, it did the math for me, and the answer is D. It's cool. Another different option is that you could have taken every answer choice and you could have plugged it in just like this and seen if it went through the 3 points. If it doesn't go through all 3 points that I have there, this went through 2 but not 3, it can't be the answer. So as you watch me changing the values to answer choice D, you'll see that it does go through. Very, very cool. Another option, which is a very cool option, is that instead of putting the table in first, I could put a function in. So I'll put in answer choice B because I know it's not the answer. And you can click here and you can create a table associated with that particular function that you put in. You can change the X values to the X values that are in the given table. And then you can see if the Y values match up. If they don't, there's no way that B can be the answer. I'll go ahead and change it to the values for D. Watch how these values change as I do so. And in doing that, I recognize that these values match these values, and D is the correct answer using a third approach for this type of question. Lots of different features used just to go after 7 questions in 6 different Desmos categories to show you a remarkable amount of Desmos features that you need and want as you begin your journey toward absolutely crushing all SAT math. Let's go. We've got a lot to learn. One Desmos category at a time. Let's go.